AI generated QR codes are trending online right now. And I want to show you not only how you can generate these QR codes, but also more organic and natural looking ones like these with a custom two-step approach, which I've not yet seen documented online. For the barcode, head over to goqr.me. Once you're on the website, pick which type of barcode you're generating. Here we'll be putting our URL, aidocs.com. Once the URL is in, hit download. Increase the error correction mode to H. What this is going to do is, for the barcode, more of the barcode can be damaged and the QR code will still work. The border we're going to leave at 1 as a minimal. You can play around with the setting. If you want a bigger border, go ahead and do that. Just remember that if you're generating a small image, the bigger the border, the more details are going to be lost out in the generation process. So hit border 1. Increase the size to the maximum final image that you'll be generating. And just save the PNG file. If you plan to use a different QR code generator, it's important you understand the essentials, which are high fault tolerance, black and white, no additional lines and elements, and use short links. The shorter, the better. Requirements. You're going to need automatic 111. You're going to need the ControlNet extension for automatic 111. And you're going to need the ControlNet V11 tile model. It's also recommended that you're running a custom model for the diffusion. For the procedure, let's bring in our prompt. I came up with the idea of a square pizza to represent a QR code. I'm going to bring the batch count, let's say to 10. Activate ControlNet. Everything else, the sizing, we're keeping it at 512. Make sure it's tile. The model is loaded. Control weight, we're going to bring this down to, let's say, 0.6. We're going to bring control step, starting step to 0.13. And bring this all the way down to 0.4. So at 40% of the way through, it's going to forget about the QR code and just focus on creating a pizza. So we're going to bring our QR code as well. Now we're going to go ahead and generate. Here we go. We have 10 possible samples we can work with. Personally, I want to say I like maybe this tomato one or this one. I can see lots of room for the QR code to integrate. I'm going to go ahead and choose the tomato one. Now what you do is send this to image. Here we go. That's our starting step. We're going to increase our sampling step to 60. We're going to increase our size to 768 by 768. We're going to bring our batch count up to 4, let's say. I was going to do 8, but let's do 4. Now we're going to decrease our denoising strength down to 0.53. What this does tells Stable Diffusion, I like my image here. Don't override it too much. If you bring this too far up, it's basically going to give you a brand new image. Again, we want to bring our QR code back into ControlNet. Enable, tile, models are loaded. Now, on this occasion, what we're going to do is we're actually going to increase our control weight. We're going to bring this up all the way to our 195. If your image is more general and you want the QR code to really go baked into it, you bring the control weight up. Now we're going to start our control step at 0.3 this time. So later in the diffusion process. And we're going to end it earlier. So give the generation process more time to kind of fill in the blanks and make it look more like a pizza towards the end of the diffusion process to fix some of the nuances that the barcode brings in. So just resize. Scroll up top. I'm actually going to increase the sampling steps all the way up to 70, giving the generation process more time to figure out the image. And we're going to go ahead and generate. All right, so generation has completed. Our images are loading here. The next step is to see if these actually work with the QR code scanner. I'm going to go ahead and scan this one. This one's not scanning. And this one. this one scans. Let me just double check again. Make sure it's not that little barcode that's scanning. Yep, this one scans. And look at that. It looks pretty good. The cheese is kind of a burnt thing, so you can't really tell that that's the QR code. And I think this works well. This is our final result. Go ahead, save this, and you can pitch this to a client as a working, customized QR code. There you have it. That's how this is done. I think this result is much better, in my opinion, than the one where essentially it takes the QR code and forces it into the image. Here we're kind of letting the whole process figure itself out. Going from the initial step where we start with a loose image, just trying to figure out what kind of image is going to work well to represent a QR code. Then we take that image and then make an extra effort to burn in the QR code. The usual approach essentially just takes an image, merges it with a QR code, and then you get kind of a QR code which is merged with an image. Here, yes, it's true that the image is merged with a QR code, but it is done in a more organic fashion, and I believe the end result speaks for itself. Alright, so just to recap, for text to image, the focus is on lower control weight, higher batch count, and early intro of ControlNet. Focusing on these three aspects, you're going to get the best start image for further generation. For image to image, the focus is on higher control weight, increased resolution, and later intro of ControlNet. These three factors are going to give you the best QR codes and the most organic output. Another approach is with ControlNet, you can actually go ahead and take your QR code, pass it through Photoshop or another photo editing application, customize the QR code, so maybe put it in a coffee cup or start that whole idea, the concept beforehand. If you already have a concept that works well in your mind, for example, here I was kind of thinking the latte art can be in the form of the QR code, and then I put some beans on the outside. When you pass this sort of image into ControlNet, it takes over the thinking and is able to generate a much more coherent image based on your initial concept. So play around with this strategy as well for good results. All right, now I want to show you the more hands-off automated approach. We have it over replicate.com/anotherjesse/multi-control. Input our prompt over here. Then we scroll down to QR image, take away the default one, drag ours in, scroll down, increase the image resolution to 768, increase number of outputs, I recommend a 2 up to a 4, and then also increase the interference steps to 30. This is going to give you a better image, and then go ahead and submit that. The other settings you can keep default. And there's our image. It looks pretty good. Second one looks pretty good as well. And these should work most of the time. These have a higher percentage. Generally, with this method, the chance of a working QR code are much higher, maybe around 30%. This first QR code, it works and it works well. So if you're just after the image barcode, this method is going to get you pretty much 95% of the way there. And these match up well with whatever you see online right now. Now, in my opinion, the hands-on approach produces a more organic and better QR code, but I'll let you be the judge of that. Now, whatever approach you choose, you have to experiment with the following factors to get the best results: the image prompt, the denoising strength, the control weight, the starting control step, the ending control step, and the QR code content itself. It's important to remember there really is no one-size-fits-all solution because different images have different complexity and require a different approach. Now, by understanding these principles, you're going to get far better end results than if you were to just try to do defaults or use whatever settings everybody else is using, because there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Now, bonus round, tips and tricks. This is my favorite. Ask yourself, how can I actually use this? It's important to understand that the QR code you're generating, it's going to be seen by people. Hopefully, if you generate a crappy QR code, or if you generate a QR code without no purpose, nobody's going to use it. There's no point in generating it. So start with the end goal in mind and then work back from there. Some tips for the actual process. Again, busy and contrasting images, they're going to work the best because QR codes themselves are busy. If you have an image which is super simple and you just put a QR code on top, it's not going to work. It has to be a busy image where there's lots of contrasting things and lots of things for the QR code to kind of blend into. A pizza is a great example because there's so many toppings and all this stuff. If it's busy, it works well. Again, think of the end use. I'm bringing this up here again because there's no point in generating these QR codes if the end use is not thought about beforehand. And keep it simple. Simple barcodes, they work the best because they're catchy, yet they communicate something quite easily. If you do it too complex and if you try to get way too far out there, it's just not going to work too well. Here's some tricks for the actual generation process that you should consider. Use advanced prompting. Advanced prompting are different strategies where you can control the image generation by switching up maybe parameters through the diffusion process. So let's say you start with a dog and then the dog changes to a car later on in the process, maybe at step 30. This is an advanced prompting technique, and something like this can kind of guide towards a QR code. But you have to consider that initial idea beforehand and then guide towards it. Edit the QR code. Remember the example of the coffee cup where I edited the photo beforehand, before passing in ControlNet? I suggest you kind of conceptualize and think of ways you can do this, because if you have that suggestion passing through the process beforehand, you can get some really cool results. And if you think a few steps ahead, you can maybe in-paint a huge canvas with the QR code embedded into the canvas. Now that's an advanced technique, and I didn't make a video of doing that, but you can really just have a big image with an infinite canvas, and the QR code can be just a small part of the image and work well. Another trick is to increase that input variety. You know that first step in our custom approach where we went from prompt to that first basic image which somewhat resembles a QR code but doesn't work at all? So increase the input variety at that stage. The more images that you have there, the more you have to work with, the more options you have. Mess around with the prompt, see what you can come up with, and generate a whole bunch of images, and that way you'll end up with a final result which you're probably going to be satisfied with. In the next video, I'm planning to use Stable Diffusion to build actual physical product. However, if you're more interested in one of the advanced topics mentioned here, drop a comment in the video description and maybe I'll do a separate video on one of these. See you on the next one.